Hello, and welcome to episode number 24 of the Marriage Coach Podcast, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. So, today, our Marriage Coach Podcast episode will be just a little bit different because just a few days ago, my husband tested positive for COVID-19. So we have now been quarantined inside of the home while being quarantined. We are recording together, but Cedric is in another room because we can't be in the studio recording together. The last few days has been a little bit different. And so we were talking from a distance and thinking about what we could share with our marriage coach listeners today, because it is always our goal to share insight into marriage and relationship and to give some wisdom and knowledge and things that we were thinking about. So as we begin to talk about COVID experience we have had over the last few days since he received his positive test results, because my husband tested positive but I tested negative for COVID. So we have to remain in separate rooms away from each other, and we're wearing masks in the home, bleaching everything, sanitizing everything, eating at different times, sleeping in separate rooms, and it's been a little different for us, right, babe?
Yeah. It's definitely been challenging. I have to say, even for first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. Yeah, just even going into the New Year's, it was a little different. I had to basically celebrate New Year's by myself coming into the new year. I know normally, we'll be together, whether we're in the backyard watching the fireworks, whether we're in the driveway watching the fireworks, whether we're, sitting reflecting on 20 on the year prior,
Mhm.
and focusing on the new year. But this has definitely been different. It's definitely been challenging as well because we spend a lot of time together. We like to spend the time together. We like to, that we normally do, we haven't been able to do. And I just want to, just let everyone know, marriage coach listeners, that I'm doing pretty good. My body is really, taking, the COVID-19 pretty good. I started off with a sore throat, and
Mhm.
I experienced something when my tongue started feeling funny. It wasn't numb, or I didn't lose my sense of taste or
Like,
anything, but it
mhm.
was like really, really sore. And when that happened, I mean, that's something that never happened. And I had the sniffles and everything. So I'm like, okay, I need to go get tested because, something is not right. And sure enough, I tested positive for COVID. But yeah, so I, dealt with, just the normal things as a common cold, which is, sore throat and runny nose and headaches. But other than that, I've been fine. So there's quite a few people that's aware of my condition right now, and I just want to first of all thank everyone for your prayers and just keeping me lifted up. Thank you.
Right, right, right. And we are thankful to God for that. And we
Yeah.
were talking about yesterday when I was in the kitchen and I had a mask on and Cedric's across the room. He's making sure he's waving me out the room anytime I come in the common areas in our home where
Uh,
he is there. And everybody in the home has been wearing a mask unless we're, in our private rooms by ourselves. But we started to talk about the fact of being together but being separate. And we started to think about all these things where we were thinking about our marriage coach listeners, and we always want to bring helpful, useful content. And so we always ask God to give us wisdom to use the things in our lives and the things that we experience to be able
yeah.
to bring light to other people, to bring wisdom to
Yeah.
other people. So we were just talking, and we were talking about not only the experience that we have, because for me as a wife, my thing, if he's sick, if he's not feeling well, I want to take care of him. I want to be there for him. I want to get the juice. I'm going to get your tissue. I'm going to do this and do that. But in this case, I can't do that. I can't
Yeah.
be the saving grace in this case. I can't be the person that is running to attend to his needs. So he has to do
Yeah.
all of those things on his own, and then I have to fight the feeling and of indulging in wanting to do those things for him. So that's been, a little bit difficult for me, and that's been a challenge for me, and the things that we are experiencing in these days of dealing with COVID. And we also talked about, in true fashion for the way we are and how we think and how we do things, we began to talk about how COVID and the experience that we're having in the home, being quarantined from each other, how that likens or parallels to sometimes things that happen in relationships or with people. And one of the things we talked about was that you want to be with the person, but you shouldn't be. And so
Mm.
when we thought about that in relationships, sometimes that's how we are in relationships. We want to be with the person, but we shouldn't be. And it for us is in a health crisis, that I want to be there for him, but I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be around him because I haven't tested positive for COVID and he doesn't want me to catch it. So it's like I have it, I have to stay away from you. So when we
Right.
were talking about that, I was like, we were just like, wow, that's sometimes how relationships go. Sometimes we want to be with people that we shouldn't be with.
Yeah, so one of the things with getting sick in the beginning, although I mean she wanted to be around me, and I didn't feel right for a minute. I mean, we can think all kind of things, it's just allergies or the weather is changing and things like that. But so the first advice I would give to somebody, in a season like this, in the midst of the pandemic, if you're feeling some kind of way or whatever, I mean, just kind of, I mean, really, treat it worst case scenario. I mean, don't just assume that it's a common cold or whatever. I remember in the beginning, she really, I was telling her, no, get away from me, and she wanted to come close to me or whatever. And I told her about the experience with the tongue, and she wanted to, she like, let me see it. And I'm like, no, stay away from me, And the thing about it is, in relationship, when you really care, those type of things, definitely is bound to happen, So thank God, rather, she listened to me and took my advice and stayed away, and, resulted in, me being positive, and she's negative, and the goal is to keep it that way. And we definitely gonna keep you guys informed, through the whole process of it. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely likened to, toxic relationships. Relationships. We find ourselves in situations where, like, man, we know we need to get out, but we're still there.
Absolutely. And I thought about that because it's a lot of things dealing with, like you said about New Year's. We just crossed over to a new year, thank God. And we typically would celebrate New Year's in a certain way. And I thought about people reflecting and things of like that. And that's why it was kind of like almost an epiphany to think about what we're experiencing right now, that you're in the home together. And for me, I want to be with you, you want to be with me, but we shouldn't be together for health reasons. And when I thought about that, I was like, wow, that is, and you and I were talking about it, and you was like, And we said that is a lot likening to a toxic relationship, that
Yeah.
sometimes a person wants to be with a person, you love them, you care about them, you had dreams for your life with that person, but you really shouldn't be with them. And so that was just like, wow. And it was profound to me because I just thought about how, if we just take a moment to reflect and think about things, that,
Yeah.
there's wisdom in every situation that we go through. And
Mhm.
so for us, if I say, as far as COVID, if I just say, okay, I shouldn't be around you, but I'm still going to snuggle up and cuddle up with you on the couch, then the probability of me catching COVID is going to go up higher. The probability of me testing positive next time is going to be even higher. The probability of me being sick will go up higher. So it's the same in a toxic relationship. If a relationship is toxic and you continue to be in that relationship when you shouldn't be, the probability of it getting worse is very well possible. And that's why I was like, oh wow. And then, the other thing we were talking about was, when you told me about the tongue thing, and I was like, being a wife, true wife fashion, I'm like, let me see it. Open your mouth. And you were like, what? Let you see it. If I got something, then you gonna have it. And I'm like,
Right.
well, you over there, I'm over here. It ain't gonna. And so sometimes it's like that, even in toxic relationships. You can't even, as the person in the relationship, you can't even see the harm that is right
Or
before
the
you.
danger, right?
Right, the danger that is right before you.
Yeah.
You can't see the toxicity in this relationship because you all I want is what's best for you. I want to see if your tongue is hurting. I want to see what it look like. I want to know how can I help. And sometimes it's the same way for a relationship. A relationship is toxic, but the person that's in the relationship can't see that it's toxic or that it's harmful to them because all they know is that they care about the person, they love the person, or they feel they had dreams and hopes of life with this person, and you feel some type of way, so you can't even see the harm that is right before you. And
So
then,
let me ask you the let me ask you this question. So,
uh-huh.
what is it like the experience of your husband testing positive for COVID-19?
Well, the experience is, I don't even know if I have a word. It's odd. It's frustrating, because like I said, I want to be there to take care of you and do things for you. And I sometimes I'm trying to, and it's like, no, no, you can't do that. No, don't do that. And it's like, it's a lot of work. And it's crazy that you could be in the house with a person in this under the same roof, but you feel so far away from them. So when you have to be in a different room from me, it just feels so different. Like this is the first time in a very, very long time in our marriage that we haven't slept in the same room. And I mean, typically when you were traveling years
Yeah.
back, that was, becoming a norm when you were traveling for work, that I would sleep by myself. But it's been years that that happened. So there's some frustration, there's some confusion, there's a little bit of loneliness, even though you there, you kind of like,
Yeah.
it's not the same as usual. I can't come lay under you and we talk, like we wake up in the morning talking, we go to bed talking, and for the last couple of days that hasn't been happening,
Yeah.
and I mean it actually, started from when the moment that your throat started itching. You was like, no, stay over there, I'm gonna stay over here. And then we just kind of amped it up even more, once the test results came in. But it's a, I would say, frustrating, a little bit lonely. And I say lonely because it's because I know that you're here, but I can't be with you like I want to be. And then very concerning, because the concern for you is I want you to get well. The other day when you were sleeping, yesterday when you were sleeping on the couch, I know you need rest, but it's like, I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard you shouldn't sleep too much. So it's like, is he sleeping too much? Should I wake him up? Should I leave him alone? I shouldn't be this close to him. I shouldn't touch. And I'm standing across the room, but I'm looking towards you. Like, is he breathing? Is everything,
Yeah.
all of these things. So it's I guess a whole lot of emotions going at
Yeah.
one time.
Let me ask you this question. Is it any sense of fear? I mean, knowing
It is.
this same
It
virus
is.
has
Mhm.
taken lives or whatever.
It
Go
is.
ahead.
It's a sense of fear because um there's two different senses of fear. The first sense of
Mm.
fear is could this kill my husband? Like, that's why the whole is he sleeping too much, because they like don't let him sleep too much. This is how they end up in the hospital. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want anything to happen to my husband. Is he sleeping too much? Is his blood flowing? Is he getting enough vitamin C? Is he getting enough water? Is he, so that's a sense of fear. I don't want him to end up in the hospital. I can't even go to the hospital. If he goes, he has to go by himself, and that's not going to work for me because I need to know what's going on. Then the other sense of fear is for myself, because it's like I want to take care of you and I want to watch over you, but I still got to be in the clear. So if I walk in the kitchen behind you, I got to have my mask on, so I'm making sure I'm not walking in, because the whole goal is for me not to test positive, not to catch COVID. So there's a sense of fear on both parts. And even the sense of fear is, if it does happen, if I catch it, then am I going to be the one that has to do the whole hospital thing and all that? So yeah, it's a sense of fear.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. I remember. It's one thing to see it happen around you. It's another thing to assume that you have it. It's another thing when you find out, hey, yeah, I mean, it's inside your body. I mean, so I mean, it was like a gas for breath. I mean, it was just for a split second. It was like, whoa, just that moment. I mean, just that moment. I mean, I shook it off pretty quick. Matter of fact, I shook it off so quick you probably didn't even
Yeah,
notice
I
it.
didn't. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you were you were in the other room, and when I, when they called and I told you, and you were kind of like, okay, and you kind of, you were in the other room, and it was like you lay down and you just kept moving because you had your mask on, you kept doing
yeah,
things or whatever. So it was like I didn't even realize that it was one of those things. But while you're talking now, I'm like, dang, we were experiencing the same thing. Like for a
yeah,
moment, it was like, oh whoa, he had it. Because at first, I'm like, maybe it's just allergies. He has allergies. Maybe it's just you drank your coffee too hot and that's why your tongue is feeling like that. Because as a human being in our humanness, we want to answer. We want to
Oh
answer.
yeah, we're trying to find best. We're trying
Yeah,
to find
we
best
we
case
wanna
scenario.
answer this best case
Yeah,
scenario, right? Not to
yeah,
answer this worst case scenario.
yeah,
It's easier to deal with than to think about you have COVID because COVID is what we've seen over the last few months in the United States and all around the world has been
yeah,
killing people. And it's the thing that's
yeah,
been hospitalizing people and taking lives and causing all kind of havoc. So of course you don't want to think that this thing has plagued dissipate, evaporate. Nobody has
mhm,
it, but definitely it brings a different sense when it's in your household and in your family. And then you have to learn to maneuver and to live around it, because you can't just continue to go on like it doesn't exist. Because for us, it's not, I guess maybe it would be different if both people test positive, but if one tests positive, one tests negative, and even if both people test positive, I guess you still have a different thing because it affects people differently. So
yeah,
it causes you to have to move around differently. So we're definitely moving around differently and acting different, responding different in the household where we continue to live together.
yeah. And that's the reason why I asked you the question because I mean it's one thing, like I say, my experience realizing I have it. You know, your experience as a spouse. You know, hearing that my spouse had it. I mean, because it's different. I mean, it's one thing to know that I have it, but for me to hear the news that you were positive, I mean, that would be a totally different ball game. You know, I'm more I'm more concerned about you than I am about myself. So
And I
uh,
guess that's the
it's
same for
just
me. The same for not that I would want for
yeah.
either of us to test positive, but it's like when it happens to your spouse, basically what the way I would sum it up is like it's out of my control. Like it's out of my
Yeah,
control. I can't do anything about this. I can't change it in any way. I can't help it in any way. I can't do anything. And the relationship that we have together, a part of my role is taking care of my family. A part of
yeah,
my role is looking out and taking care of you. No control over each day and what the outcome is. Like we were talking about the other day, the I can't remember what day it was, but whatever. The other day you were just sleeping. You kind of got up and you walked around and you had, with your mask on, you walked around and you were in the office for a little bit, but then you were sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. And I could tell that you were tired. And
yeah.
that's the only
Hey,
symptom was you're sleeping. So
and you know what? Honestly, because I didn't mention that, but I mean that is one of the symptoms right now. For example, I mean normally, I mean any given day, I mean I'm up about 4:35 in the morning. It's just
yeah.
automatic with no alarm clock. I'm up,
Mhm.
and I get up, and I can go from probably 4 in the morning till I mean I start tapping out around 7, 8 at night. With COVID, you know, things have changed. My body hasn't been able to. I still get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and right now, I mean, honestly, about 2, 3 in the evening, maybe 1 o'clock. It's like afternoon. I mean, it's like my body. It's like my body is ready to shut down. You know, my body is ready to call it the day, and it happens early. So one of the adjustments I had to make, and even making now, thinking through it, whatever I need to get done through the day, because I mean, I still have, we still have ministry, still have business and things that, I want to get taken care of, meetings and, making sure everything lined up with me being, quarantined for the next few weeks, actually the whole family, the whole family, because I tested positive. I mean, the whole family is on quarantine. I mean, we can't do anything, just making sure everything is set up right or whatever. So now I have to make sure I try to get everything done before 2 o'clock, because after 2 o'clock, I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm ready to lay it down. I mean, because my body, I understand. I mean, my body is trying to fight this COVID every day. My body is fighting. Body need rest a lot sooner than it would normally need. Going a full day. So that's another thing. I mean, another symptom that I didn't mention about COVID. It definitely, after probably maybe 5 hours, I mean, I'm like ready to call it a day. I mean, I'm energized when I first get up, but it doesn't last long. So yeah,
So so you just gave me another thought while you were talking, and because you were talking about how you always do, you're up early in the morning every day of the week, all the time, and you're going till like you said, 6, 7, sometimes 8 o'clock.
right,
um and is just thinking about that, and you were saying you had to adjust over the last few days because now your body is needing rest sooner. You're running out of energy sooner, but there's still things to be taken care of. And I was just thinking about that because we're talking about the effects it has on us, as well
right,
as the things that it parallels and likening to with relationships. And I was thinking about that, knowing because you had to pay attention to know what was needed and when it's needed, and to
right,
give yourself what you need when you need it. And that's something that we talk about a lot on the Marriage Coach podcast. For the single, for the married, for the couples, we always, we have to pay attention to what we need. Because for me, I paid attention to the same thing. And so it's like you were up yesterday morning, you were up early in the morning, and I was still sleeping. You were up and you were, lights out and everything, bleaching everything, and you were kind of moving around and talking about different things where we need to take care of with business and ministry, and making calls, so that we can get things in place, and talking
right,
about setting things up. But and I got up because you were up doing those things, and I got up to do my part or whatever when you started talking to me. And it just hit me when you were talking that we both adjusted and did what needed to be done while you had the energy to do it. And
right,
that's just thinking about that in connection with us together, we are in tune with that, because we realize that right now life is different for us. So we have to do what
right,
we can while we can to be able to get the things done that we need to get done. And just basically taking advantage of the time that you have energy, taking advantage of the time that you're at your best. And I was just, while you were talking, I was just like, wow, that's something that we should do and can do in relationships as well, taking advantage of the time that we're at our best, because what we're doing in those moments is preparing for the times when you're not going to be at your best, that some
right,
things are still going, that things are still taking place, that the things that need to be done are still getting done, that we're lining up people and resources to keep things flowing while we have to remain inside. So just thinking about that, I like, wow, even in a relationship, we have to do the same thing. We want to do what we can while we can to keep our relationships and our togetherness flowing when we're at our best, when we're at our fullness, putting things in place for the long haul, for the days ahead, for the months ahead, for the years ahead. That was good. That's what popped in my head while you were talking.
good,
As Babe and I, we're talking about, the experience we're having with COVID, and the adjustments we've made, and the way we're doing life for the next few weeks to to get through what we need to get through. We also thought about not allowing our desire to be together in this. very moment becoming bigger than the both of us and what is the greater good for us as a relationship, as a couple, as our health, as our family. So that's one of the other things that we did talk about and we learned, or one of the things that we're mindful of and that's at the forefront of our thinking when it comes to making these adjustments during COVID, not letting the desire to be together with each other become greater than the greater good of both people or all people involved. So,
Mm.
doing what we need to do now to solidify for us to, when it's gone and when you're negative, you are now able to move on without having to have someone else sick. And now it's another adjustment or something like that.
I have COVID right now. The job is still to protect. So I still go into protective mode. I try not to talk as much when I am around or when we're having a conversation. I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to do sign language and things like that. Trying my best not to talk
Yeah.
at all because I don't want, I know it, could transfer from the mouth, and I don't want that to happen. So I definitely, I just want to protect and trying to do what's best for the family. And even through this time, I know it's temporary. I know it's an end date, and
Yeah.
I know it's going to come to an end. And I just have to have the discipline, and I have to have the patience to just wait this thing out, let my body do what it does. In due time, we'll be able to gather together again in the future. And I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to that. I'll tell you one thing though, just with that being said, even this whole quarantine, luckily, our house is large enough where we can space ourselves out. I don't know. You kind of take things for granted, and I think one thing COVID let me, just kind of reminds me that man, man, life is precious, family is precious, and man, your health is precious. So it's just there's just some things that really got me thinking right now. How quick and one slip up, one mistake, taking your mask off one time. That's what's so crazy about it. It's like just not having your mask on one time, and it can happen just like that. And it's like, wow, wow. So I just encourage everyone, just be careful because I mean this thing can happen to anybody. COVID, it doesn't matter your financial status, your religion. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, how tall you are. Whether you have your teeth, whether you don't have teeth, or whether it's not prejudice, and it will affect anybody. So, just really be careful with this thing. I wish you all the blessings through this pandemic. Speak my mask right here. Speak Psalms 91 over each and every one of your life. That this disease will not take you over. Let's keep each and every one of you in prayer as you pray for me. Thank you.
So we want to thank you. We thank you all for joining us today on the Marriage Coach podcast. We want to invite you to subscribe and click the notification button. Give us a big thumbs up. If you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That'll help us get the word out. Also, head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, and check us out on YouTube and iTunes.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Marriage Coach podcast. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.